Hi, welcome to Let's Talk Pilgrimage. I'm at the 9th station of the Way of the Cross, or the Via Dolorosa here in Jerusalem, and there's probably no activity, no topography or pathway, no pilgrim practice in Jerusalem for both Catholics and Protestants that's most representative, indicative of the kind of the pilgrimage image today than doing the Ways of the Cross. I'm the course director for St. George's College, and we do the Way of the Cross towards the end of every single study pilgrimage that we do. But I want to use this image of pilgrimage just to open up a can of worms that we will leave as an open conversation, and that is the distinction between being a tourist and being a pilgrim. Now, first of all, and this is very, very important, is the only one that decides who's a pilgrim is the pilgrim themselves. This is an open conversation. It's self-determined. We can talk about kind of pilgrim-like activities and pilgrim-like mentalities, but whether you think of yourself as a tourist, a pilgrim, or some other category like a student or being in solidarity with local groups, being on mission, these are words for you to decide yourself. But to define pilgrimage, I don't like to go to very academic, even anthropological definitions of pilgrimage. I like these more aphorisms, these adages, kind of these proverbial statements that get us to think through in a very focused way. If I was going to lay everything out on the table in terms of what a pilgrim is, and this may not be so sexy, I'd say pilgrimage is our experience of God, self, and the other through people, time, places, and journeys, and our reflections upon that. But if I'm working with Holy Land pilgrims, or even people on a mission trip, or people in Santiago, then some of the definitions I would first use, I would say that on a vacation or a holiday, we often go to get away from life. Of course, that doesn't explain every vacation. We go to grandmothers and have lots of connection with families of vacations, but there's a certain type of vacation where we go to the lake, we go to the beach, and we get away from stress, we get away from our everyday life, we empty our minds, and that is exactly what we need, and I do love these type of vacations as well. Where on vacation we go to get away from our life, pilgrimage, we face life head on. On pilgrimage, we confront life's most important questions. And so on pilgrimage, and that means we can define something that's pilgrimage that's not necessarily a group tour. It has to be called a pilgrimage, but if we use that definition of setting time aside, maybe going to a place, maybe spending a week, where we are reflecting on what means most to us in life, then you're certainly a pilgrim, and you can call yourself being on pilgrimage. So here in Jerusalem, some of that's just obvious, because if we are talking about stories of the Christian faith, events of salvation, and how they affect the whole human condition as well as our individual lives and communities, of course we're talking about issues of faith, life, death, redemption, salvation, forgiveness, things that are very important. But we can also use pilgrimage, in Jerusalem pilgrimage, even with the noise, even with the busyness. And this certainly translates to other types of pilgrimage and travels, to use it as a time of personal discernment. Use it as a time of, I've got a decision to make, a decision about a relationship, a decision about my vocation, a choice to make. And I will use this time to think about that. One thing we can say about pilgrimage that's different than maybe tourism is that we always have one foot back home. We're always evaluating our life as it's lived back home, and we're also always praying for people, individuals, families, or religious communities. So those are a couple things, the ways that what's most important in our lives. How do we evaluate our lives? How do we recommit ourselves to the virtues and values and identities that we belong to or want to belong to? How do we transform ourselves or continue to develop into the people of compassion, of Christ-likeness, of generosity and love that we want to be? These are questions of most importance. And those questions also relate to a big part of pilgrimage. What are those things we need to get rid of? What are those things we need to let go that are imposing upon us, making life most important? So that's just one frame of pilgrimage and the difference between that and a tourist. And there's many others that we can do. So we're going to pick up this topic more of the difference between being a pilgrim and a tourist, and that's us from Jerusalem. We'll see you next time on Let's Talk Pilgrimage.